Do you have an unforgettable story? We want to hear it. Share your unique journey with us and let your story inspire others. Due to my recent promotion, I was ecstatic. On the occasion of our third wedding anniversary, I was eager to convey the wonderful news. During a special dinner, I intended to inform my mother-in-law, Mrs. Jerry, and my husband, Paul. I had a vision of a joyful and humorous celebration night, but what actually transpired altered my entire outlook on life. Rather of celebrating, I was confronted with something so shocking and painful that I was taken aback. I was astounded by my husband's response when I broke the news to him. With a look of rage on his face, he abruptly sprang up and gave me a hard slap across the face before I could even comprehend what was happening. I sat on the floor, clutching my cheek in agony and shock after the impact. My entire perspective on my life and marriage collapsed in that instant, but as I experienced anguish and perplexity, I also felt a strong sense of resolve. I understood that I couldn't continue in this unhealthy partnership. I made the decision to take action because I knew my life needed to change. I had no idea how drastically my world would change as a result of the decisions I made during the next few weeks. I'll begin at the beginning. I'm Anna, and I work in Alexandria, Maryland as a financial analyst. On the surface, my life appeared to be ideal. Up until that night, I believed everything was proceeding according to plan. It was to be an evening to remember. After putting in a lot of effort, I had recently been promoted to senior financial analyst. For me, this was a significant occasion, and I was pleased with my achievement. During our anniversary meal, I thought my husband and his mother would be pleased to hear the wonderful news. With soft lighting and soothing music playing in the background, the restaurant we selected was stunning. It seemed like the ideal location for a party. I was anxious, but also excited as I sat at the table. Paul was grinning at me, and I assumed that my news would make him very happy. Mrs. Jerry, his mother, was also present, looking as dapper as ever. After taking a long breath, I eventually stated, "I have some amazing news. Paul and Mrs. Jerry, I now hold the position of senior financial analyst." I anticipated cheers, congrats, and perhaps even a toast to commemorate the milestone. Rather, there was quiet. The joyful moment I had envisioned vanished. Mrs. Jerry's face darkened, and she looked at me with disapproval. Then she spoke, her voice cold and sharp. "Is this what we raised him for? To be overshadowed by his wife's career?" Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had expected pride or at least a polite response. Instead, it felt as though I had done something terribly wrong. Paul didn't defend me or celebrate with me. Instead, he shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding my eyes. This wasn't the life I wanted. In that moment, I realized I had to take control of my own happiness. What happened that night was the beginning of a journey that would change everything for me. I could see the struggle in Paul's eyes. He wanted to stand by me, but he was caught in a tough spot, torn between his wife and his mother. He hesitated before speaking, his voice soft and uncertain. "Mom, this is great news for Anna. We should celebrate her success," he said, but there was no strength in his words, no real support. Mrs. Jerry wasn't going to let it go. She shook her head, her expression hard. "What about starting a family, Anna?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Do you think a promotion can replace the joy of having children?" Her words stung, and I felt a wave of anger rising inside me. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I believe I can balance both my career and a family, Mrs. Jerry," I replied firmly. "This promotion means a lot to me." Paul lowered his head, staring at the table instead of looking at me. "Anna," he said quietly, "maybe we should think about what Mom is saying." His tone was cold and distant, and my heart sank. This wasn't the man I thought I had married. Where was the supportive partner I had always believed he was? I straightened up and replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can't just quit my job to please your mother, Paul. I've worked hard for this. I deserve respect for my efforts." My voice was calm, but inside, I felt hurt and frustrated. The air around us grew tense, and I could feel the eyes of other people in the restaurant turning toward our table. Paul's expression changed, and frustration flashed in his eyes. His voice grew sharper. "You're being unreasonable, Anna," he said. "You're my wife, not my competitor. Why can't you see that?" His words hurt more than I could have imagined. They felt like a blow to my heart. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling. "This isn't a competition, Paul. I wanted to share my success with you, to celebrate it together." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I fought to hold them back. Mrs. Jerry leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You need to think about what's best for the family, not just your career ambitions," she said coldly. I felt trapped, cornered by their words. My voice rose with anger and desperation. "This is who I am, and I won't give it up. Not for anyone." Paul suddenly stood, the tension in his body clear. "You don't understand," he said, his voice rising. "You're putting your career above everything else. Marriage is about sacrifice." In that moment, I saw the deep influence his mother had over him. It twisted his views of marriage into something that felt suffocating. I had always believed we were partners, but now I felt like a stranger in my own life. Sacrifice doesn't mean losing yourself. I shot back, my cheeks flushed with heat. I deserve to follow my dreams too. The argument hit its peak, and what happened next shocked me to my core. Paul raised his hand and struck me across the face. The sound of the slap echoed through the restaurant, and everything went silent. Conversation stopped as people turned to stare. I sat there, frozen in disbelief and pain. My world had just shattered in a single moment. I fell to the floor completely shocked and confused. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. I couldn't believe what had just happened. My heart was racing, and I felt the sting on my cheek, both from the slap and from the deep betrayal by someone I loved. As I lay there, tears streaming down my face, a painful realization hit me. This moment was a turning point. The trust I had in Paul was broken, shattered into pieces in an instant. Deep inside, I knew I couldn't stay in this toxic situation any longer. I pushed myself up from the floor, my hands trembling and my heart pounding. A surge of determination rose within me. I wasn't going to let this moment define me. I wouldn't let myself become a victim. I had to take control of my life. What had started as an evening of joy and excitement had turned into chaos and pain. As I looked at Paul and his mother, Mrs. Jerry, it became clear that this wasn't just an argument. It was a wake-up call. This was my moment to make a choice to free myself from the heavy expectations that had been suffocating me and to start living life for myself. I turned and left the restaurant. My emotions were swirling. Anger, sadness, fear, and a small spark of hope. The cool night air hit my face like a splash of cold water, bringing me back to reality. I felt humiliated, not only by Paul's actions, but by how the whole evening had unfolded. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, but it had turned into a nightmare. As I drove home, I replayed the events of the night over and over in my head. How had things reached this point? How had the man I loved and trusted raised his hand against me? And how had his mother's influence managed to turn him against me? I thought about the life we had built together. The dreams, the plans, the promises. Now it all felt meaningless, like a fragile ship lost in a storm. When I finally reached home, the silence was overwhelming. It was deafening, pressing down on me like the walls were closing in. I dropped my keys on the table and sank into a chair, still in shock. My mind was racing and I could hear the faint sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. I pulled up my phone and stared at the screen. There were no messages from Paul. No apology. No concern. Nothing. Feeling the weight of loneliness pressing down on me, I decided to call Cheryl, my closest friend and colleague. I needed someone to talk to. Someone who could understand what I was going through. After a few rings, Cheryl answered, her voice filled with concern. "Anna, is everything okay?" "No, Cheryl," I replied, my voice trembling. "It's not okay. You won't believe what just happened." "What happened? Are you all right?" she asked quickly, her tone urgent. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I needed to tell her everything. And in that moment, I realized that sharing my pain with someone who cared might be the first step toward healing and finding the strength to move forward. I announced my promotion at our anniversary dinner thinking it would be a joyful moment, but everything went wrong. Mrs. Jerry, my mother-in-law, got angry, and then Paul, my husband, did the unthinkable. He hit me. For a moment, silence hung in the air as the shock of what had just happened settled over me. When I called Cheryl, her voice was filled with worry. "Oh my God, Anna, are you hurt?" she asked, her tone rising with alarm. "I'm fine physically," I replied, my voice trembling, but emotionally, I don't know. It feels like everything I believed about our marriage has fallen apart. Cheryl's response was firm, like a lifeline pulling me out of my despair. "Anna, you need to get out of that situation. You don't deserve to be treated like this." "I know," I said, my voice cracking, "but it's complicated. We've been together for years, and I really thought we were happy. Sometimes, the people we love change, especially under pressure," Cheryl said gently, "but you need to think about what's best for you now." As I listened to Cheryl, a wave of realization swept over me. I had given so much to this relationship, my time, my energy, and my love, and now I was left feeling lost and alone. "I think I need to talk to a divorce attorney," I finally said. The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, but also freeing. "Do it," Cheryl said with encouragement. "I'll be here for you every step of the way. You deserve to be happy." After hanging up, I felt a mix of fear and determination. The thought of taking this step terrified me, but it also gave me a sense of control. I knew that if I wanted to reclaim my life, I had to make tough decisions. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart but a clear mind. I called the divorce attorney Cheryl had recommended. "Hello. My name is Anna," I said as soon as the call connected. "I need to file for divorce." "Understood," the attorney replied. "Can you come in this afternoon to discuss the details?" "Yes, I'll be there," I said, hanging up with a sense of resolve. I was finally taking control one small step at a time. At work, I tried to focus, but the weight of everything that had happened was pressing down on me. During our morning meeting, my boss, Mr. Patrick, noticed my distraction. "Anna, is everything all right? You seem a little off today," he asked gently. "I'm dealing with some personal issues, but I'll manage," I replied, forcing a small smile. "You know you can talk to me if you need to," he said, his voice full of understanding. "Thank you, Mr. Patrick." "I appreciate it," I said, feeling grateful for his support. It was comforting to know I had allies at work. Later that day, Cheryl surprised me by bringing lunch to my office. Her thoughtfulness reminded me that even in the darkest moments, I wasn't completely alone. I was not completely alone. I was beginning to see that with the support of friends and my own strength, I could rebuild my life. "I thought you could use a break," Cheryl said as she slid into the chair across from me, placing a lunch bag on the table. Her thoughtful gesture brought a small smile to my face. "How did the meeting with the attorney go?" she asked gently. "I haven't gone yet," I admitted, lowering my gaze. "I'm nervous about what's next. It all feels so overwhelming." Cheryl reached across the table, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. "Just take it one day at a time. You're stronger than you think, Anna," she said, her voice filled with encouragement. Her words sparked a small glimmer of hope inside me. Maybe I was stronger than I gave myself credit for. That afternoon, I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the storm of emotions inside me. I focused on spreadsheets, numbers, and analysis, anything to keep my mind busy. For a few hours, I managed to escape the heaviness of my reality. Work became my safe space, a place where I felt capable and in control. Eventually, the time came for my appointment with the divorce attorney. My heart pounded as I stepped into the office feeling a mix of fear and determination. A middle-aged woman named Teresa greeted me warmly. "Let's get started," she said, her tone both professional and kind. Her calm presence immediately put me at ease. Teresa listened patiently as I shared my story, detailing the struggles I had faced, both emotional and physical. As I spoke, I felt a sense of empowerment growing within me. For the first time, I wasn't just a victim. I was taking action to reclaim my life. "Anna, it sounds like you've made the right choice for yourself. You deserve to be in a healthy and supportive environment," Teresa said thoughtfully. Her words hit me deeply. For so long, I had put everyone else's needs ahead of my own. Hearing someone affirm that I deserved better made me feel validated. When the meeting ended, I walked out of her office with a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. I had taken the first step toward a new life. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it. The weeks that followed the anniversary dinner were a whirlwind of emotions and tough decisions. After meeting with Teresa, I began the difficult process of separating my life from Paul's. Each day felt like a tug-of-war between fear and hope. Some moments were filled with dread as I faced the unknown, but others were marked by a growing determination to rebuild myself. At work, I poured all my energy into my projects. My recent promotion reminded me of my worth and the bright future I could still create. Work gave me purpose and kept me moving forward. Though the road ahead was uncertain, I held on to the belief that I could find my voice, my strength, and my freedom. I was no longer defined by someone else's expectations. I was learning to define my own. I focused on proving myself, not just to my colleagues, but to myself as well. Work became a place where I could channel my energy and rebuild my confidence. My boss, Mr. Patrick, continued to check in on me regularly. One afternoon, he stopped by my desk with a kind smile. "Anna, you're doing excellent work. If you ever need to talk, I'm here," he said warmly. "Thank you, Mr. Patrick. I really appreciate your support," I replied, feeling genuinely grateful for his understanding. His encouragement reminded me that I wasn't completely alone. One evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Cheryl, my closest friend. It read, "Let's celebrate your new beginning. How about drinks this weekend?" Her message brought a much-needed smile to my face. I realized how much I needed a break, a chance to relax and feel normal again. "Absolutely. I could use some fun," I replied, feeling excitement bubbling inside me. That Wednesday, we met at a lively bar downtown. The atmosphere was warm and energetic with laughter and music filling the air. As I walked in, I felt a sense of relief, like I was stepping out of the heavy shadow that had been hanging over me. Cheryl waved enthusiastically from a corner table, and I quickly joined her. The weight of the past few weeks started to lift as we sat down. "Cheers to new beginnings," Cheryl exclaimed, raising her glass high. To new beginnings, I echoed, clinking my glass against hers with a smile. We talked about everything: work, my promotion, and my plans for the future. I shared an idea that had been on my mind for a while. I want to start a mentorship program for young women in finance, I said, my voice filled with excitement. I want to help them navigate the challenges I faced. That's a brilliant idea, Cheryl said, her face lighting up. You'd be an amazing mentor. As the evening went on, I felt lighter and more like myself. Laughing and connecting with Cheryl helped me rediscover my passions and dreams. It was exactly what I needed to reignite my spirit. The following week, I met Abigail, a professional contact who had invited me to speak at an upcoming conference. We met at a small cafe to discuss the details. I'm so glad you decided to join us, Anna, Abigail said. Your story will inspire so many people. I hope so, I replied with a smile. I want to empower others to find their voice. As the conference date approached, I carefully prepared my speech. I worked hard to weave in the lessons I had learned, hoping to make a meaningful impact. The night before, I stood in front of the mirror, practicing my words. I felt a mix of nerves and excitement, but also a growing sense of purpose. On the day of the conference, I stepped onto the stage, feeling the weight of the moment. The room was filled with women, all eager to hear my story. My heart raced, but as I began to speak, a wave of calm and determination washed over me. I stand here today as a survivor, I began, someone who has faced the storm and come out stronger. I shared my journey, and as I looked around, I saw women nodding in understanding. In that moment, I felt a powerful connection with the audience, and I knew that I was on the path to something truly meaningful. I know what it feels like to be trapped, I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. To think your dreams don't matter. But I'm here to tell you that your voice matters. Your dreams matter. You deserve to follow your passions. As I spoke, I felt my confidence growing. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. The sound was overwhelming, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes. Afterwards, women approached me one by one, sharing their own stories. Some thanked me for my honesty, while others told me how much they related to my journey. In that moment, I realized something powerful. I wasn't alone in my struggles. These women had faced similar battles, and our connection gave me a sense of hope and purpose that I hadn't felt in a long time. In the days that followed, I focused on turning my newfound strength into action. I began planning a mentorship program to help young women in finance. I reached out to local universities hoping to connect with students who were eager to carve their own paths in the industry. This new venture gave me a sense of energy and determination. I was no longer just Anna, someone defined by the expectations of others. I was Anna, a mentor, a leader, and a voice for change. While I moved forward with my new life, Paul continued to reach out to me. He sent messages and left voicemails apologizing and asking. One evening, I received a text from Mary, a mutual friend. Paul's been asking about you, she wrote. He says he regrets everything. It's too late for that, I replied. My heart felt heavy, but I was resolute. I had moved on. I was building a new life, and I wasn't going back. As the months passed, I found my footing in this new chapter of my life. The mentorship program began to grow, and I started meeting with young women who were excited to pursue careers in finance. For the first time in a long time, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. One Wednesday, I hosted the program's first meeting at a local cafe. As I looked around the room at the eager faces of the participants, I felt a rush of excitement. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you're here, I said, my voice steady and warm. Today, we'll share our stories and talk about the challenges we face in our careers. The discussions were lively and heartfelt. Each woman shared her experiences, and I saw how powerful our connections could be. I wasn't just sharing my story anymore. I was helping others find their voices too. A young woman named Patricia came up to me after the meeting. She added, "Thank you. Thank you for creating this space," with optimism shining in her eyes. "I've been struggling to find my place in this industry." I grinned and added, "That's exactly why I started this program. You belong here, and we'll support each other every step of the way." Every meeting made me feel more resilient. I was thriving instead of just getting by, and I was assisting others in doing the same. I started looking for additional chances for myself as I became more certain in my work as a mentor. I happily accepted Abigail's invitation to present at another conference. I felt more confident and less anxious this time. I was prepared to talk about both my successes and my setbacks. I thought about how far I had come while I was getting ready for my speech. I was no longer the woman who had been humiliated in front of family or who felt helpless in a poisonous relationship. As a woman who had risen from the ashes and was resolved to change the world, I was Anna. On the day of the conference, I experienced a mixture of anxiety and exhilaration as I took the platform. I inhaled deeply before starting. I want to discuss communal power and resilience today. We can overcome anything if we work together. The crowd gave me encouraging and understanding nods as I spoke. There was huge applause as I concluded. I became aware that I was doing more than just delivering a speech at that point. I was making connections. I was now empowering and encouraging everyone around me by transforming my suffering into strength. That night, when I drove home, I had a great sense of accomplishment. Although it still had an influence on me, my past was no longer in charge of me. I was creating a new life for myself, one that was full of optimism and purpose. I knew I had the power to handle whatever that came my way, so I was prepared to accept whatever lay ahead. I knew I was headed in the right direction, but my adventure was far from over.